My name is Gloria Ogunbadejo. I'm married and I have two daughters, two amazing daughters. By trade, I'm a psychotherapist, counselor, and I've been working in mental health for a couple of decades. I don't want to give away my age, but I've been at it for a while.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi Ewanfo, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
I recently became an ordained minister and working independently in terms of not necessarily attached to any church, but my ministry is working with young people and people who still have faith, but might not necessarily go to church anymore. So that's my target group. By day I work with an organization called Diabetes UK, and that's working with families and people who live with diabetes, which is a very serious condition. I also am an advocate for sickle cell anemia, and presently working with a group of people to write a book with the experiences of what they call warriors and caregivers and advocates. And when I have some time, personal time, I love to dance. I love classical music, jazz music. I love
That is
watching.
absolutely fantastic.
You asked me about myself.
That is great. The conversation just now for our audience is that we are going to be talking about Metahead in the African community, in the African diaspora community. And for some strange reason, this is something that we don't talk about often, even though it affects us a lot. Because we are just like every other human being, it affects every people in this world. So it is good that from time to time we also talk about it. The first thing I would like to ask you is why don't we talk about it a lot, or is it me that it's just having the feeling that we don't talk about mental health as much as we should?
Thank you for that question. It's a great question. I think we've been there are lots of reasons why we don't talk about mental health. And unfortunately, a large percent of it has to do with fear, how we've been socialized, our religious beliefs, tradition, culture. But all of those things have worked hugely against us because that fear about saying you have issues around mental health, that fear around that, what it has done, it has made people hide when they're struggling, whereas there's certain things that could easily be done to support people with mental health problems. I always say one of my favorite quotes is that you don't have to be mad to have mental health problems. Mental health is part of general well-being. We have physical health and we have mental health. Where if your physical health is in trouble or is failing, you go and get help for it. Similarly, you may have pressures, stresses of life that can at times create problems with mental health, and it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to be afraid of. And because we have these beliefs that the traditional idea of someone with mental health is a crazy person running down the street naked. But in reality, all of us go through some level of distress. It's on a continuum, from one end to the other, where the issue of mental health. There may be periods in your life where your mental health is really at a low ebb, or you're under huge amounts of stress, which in this day and age, the percentage of people who are really struggling with their mental health has quadrupled, and we see it in how people behave. There's self-harm, and self-harm is not only about maybe cutting yourself. It's overeating, over drinking, being promiscuous. There are all kinds of things which represent self-harm that people don't realize. And people behave, in ways that cause harm to their family, without realizing it's because they're going through a period of difficulties with their mental health. So that's just a snapshot. And I think the attitudes really need to change. Otherwise, we're going to create generations of people who, this thing about generational trauma, generations of people, our young ones, we just have to look at them now, with social media, that's a whole section of mental health issues that social media is creating, the pandemic, so there's just so much that at the moment is happening to create huge problems with our mental health. So we really need to get a grip and stop thinking of mental health as some strange thing that happens only to certain people, or it's, somebody has put some, juju or magic and all that nonsense that people associate with it. We have to understand that mental health is nothing to be ashamed of. And sometimes intervening, with very quickly, with a certain difficulty that you may be going through within your life, intervening very quickly, people being able to say, look, I'm struggling, I'm feeling depressed, just being able to talk about it without shame, you'll be surprised, can reduce that difficulty and create a more healthy state of mind. So, yeah, we need to talk about it. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Just so we can have a little context in it, I was reading some posts before we started the interview. I was going through something like this. About the statistics of what is going on within the diaspora community, whether you are looking at maybe the US or UK, or just look at the African in general. It means that what we are talking about is not some kind of isolated cases. It's huge. It's really huge in the community. I don't know what is your take on that, because I look at it to be something really serious. No, we don't need to sweep it under the carpet.
I mean, without being over dramatic, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic because from where we were 2, 3, 4 years ago to where we are now, there's an explosion of mental health problems. Suicide is on the increase, men, young people, and that comes from the impact of social media. People are behaving in the most outrageous ways, and it's not just young people, it's their parents. So social media has created its own mental health epidemic. Then that's been compounded with the couple of years that we've been in the pandemic, and what that has, the problems that has also created. It's increased domestic violence. It's increased, again, the level of suicide with young people. So where we are right now, mental health is massive. And in the West, there's an acknowledgement of it. There are new programs being turned around. I mean, everywhere now, there are mental health programs to support people across the board, because we're in trouble with it. So the West has always had a more open-minded view around mental health, even though there's still stigma, even in the West, but at least there are places that one can go, to get support. And that is, the governments here are throwing money at it now, because they know, as far as the workforce, they're going to have even more problems if they don't address it. So where are we in Africa? What are we doing? Is there any kind of acknowledgement? I know there are more organizations coming up, beginning to try to work around mental health, but it's something that within the families themselves have to be comfortable to allow themselves, their children, to be able to talk about it, with a little bit more compassion and empathy and understanding about what mental health is, and moving away from the old stereotypes and misinformation, around mental health. We have to come away from that, ridiculous image we have of the person, who has mental health, which is nothing to do with us. We all have mental health. And saying mental health, as soon as you say mental health, I remember I was doing I used to write for the Punch newspaper in Nigeria. I wrote for 10 years on mental health. And when I first started, people said, you can't, I said I wanted to call it mental health matters. And they said, no, don't do that. The people won't read it. You can't call it mental health, call it well-being, or, I said, if you want me to do this, that's part of the problem. It's mental health. And we have to be able to say the word without, freezing up. It's not a bad word. Think of it just as, like I said earlier, you have physical health in the same way you have mental health, and either one can be out of sync at any point in your life. So from being warned against it, I ended up spending 10 years writing about mental health, which was quite an eye-opener that people, and that was 10 years ago, people were ready to hear about it. They were curious. People were sending messages, letters, so there is an appetite, to understand it, but there's still a lot of stereotype and fear that we really have to work hard to overcome.
All right, stereotype and fear that we need to overcome. I like that. Now, as human being, we are living in this world. This is our world. This is us. This is where we live. No, I think we should be courageous enough sometimes to face the problem and call it by its name. Because if we don't call it the name that it really is, then we'll just be fighting shadow. And when you are fighting shadow, you're actually fighting yourself because you don't have the object that you are tackling. You can never find a solution to things like that. Now, we are both from Nigeria, no? You are okay. Having said that, what I'm actually trying to go from here is that we understand where we are coming from in terms of our culture, our value. Because you are older than me, I'm going to put a question to you like this.
How do you know I'm older than you?
Oh, come on, I can see that. I read your bio.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Okay. Is there something that prohibits us from really looking at this and calling it what it is, this issue of Metahead? Is there something that is preventing us from really looking at it the way it is, culturally speaking?
It's because of the stereotypes around how we've always thought of mental health. And very typically, anybody with mental health, like I said, is somebody who, to use, has the hair is dada. I don't know if you know what that is, just, locks that are running wild. Still some of those internalized colonial attitudes, because that's a whole different conversation. But anyway, it's the stereotype, like I said, thinking of when you say mental health, everybody thinks of someone who is mad. And for that, nobody wants to be associated with that. People don't see their behavior, their day-to-day behaviors as having anything to do with mental health. Like a woman who has had a baby and who's going through postpartum depression. That's very serious. For some women, they can harm their children, they can harm themselves. That's mental health problems. People don't see that. And typically, if a woman is we've heard of women back in Nigeria, there were a couple of high-profile women who killed their husbands. And one of the things that I asked was that, just out of curiosity, had this person had a baby recently? And they said, yeah, she just had a baby. And nobody thought of postpartum depression. And that's a very serious mental health problem, which can be dealt with very, very easily, by giving the person the attention they need. Sometimes they may need to be on medication, which is another thing. People have this fear of being on medication for mental health. It can be the difference between life and death, for some people. And it just for a period of their lives, they need the attention. If they don't get it, it can then, develop into something quite serious and become, a real psychological, psychopathic problem. Mental health is something that if it's not addressed, and it's allowed to fester, some people can come back from it, by themselves. but some people actually need intervention. And it's that understanding that for somebody to say, I'm struggling, a lot of times people don't have the language, they don't know what's going on. And that's where if family recognize or are open to, okay, what's happening with you? I see your behavior has changed, you're sleeping more, or you're not sleeping, you're eating too much, or you're not eating. There's certain things. It's just having the mental health awareness. I think we really need, serious campaigns where we can talk about it. Even talking about mental health, I went to Nigeria a few times, and I was interviewed on the TV, because those are great attitudes for just trying to get people to get comfortable with hearing the word mental health and understanding what it actually means, and coming away from those awful stereotypes and stigma. The more we talk about it, this is a great opportunity, and I'm so thankful that you're doing this. Being able to people to hear, what mental health actually means, and not to be afraid of it. And even then think about their own lives and periods of their lives where they feel, we use expression, English language is great. It says, I feel on the edge. I don't feel myself. I feel, I'm of two minds. All those words suggest something, going on within a person's emotional or psychological, mental well-being that is not, they're not at ease with themselves. These are all indications that maybe something is going on, that it needs for you to just take a minute, self-care. What do I need to do when I actually feel myself on the edge? And we all know those days where we feel, I don't feel right. I don't feel I can go into the world today. I'm really edgy. And it's, again, on a continuum. There are those who feel just like that, and there are those who feel the extreme of that even goes into a period of saying, I don't really want to be in the world. And they're all little things that people actually say, that if you have an awareness of mental health, you can sort of say, okay, do you want to talk about it? Sometimes that's all it takes, because when something is in your head, sometimes in your subconscious, if you are given the space to talk about it, then it comes into your conscious mind, it reduces it. But if you don't talk about it, it stays there and wreaks havoc. And what then happens is that you begin to act it out in ways that you don't realize that there's a connection. So it's just all these things. People, when I talk about it, people say, oh my God, that's what I've been feeling. I didn't realize that. So sometimes it's just that awareness, bringing that awareness into people's psyche, that really is helpful.
Thank you very much for that. That is very important. Another thing I'm trying to, out of curiosity, I'm thinking about now is, why is it that we easily connect mental health to spiritual thing? Maybe somebody is having having a manifestation because of what is going through, psychologically speaking. They will easily say, okay, this one is because you have been bewitched, or things like that. Why do we easily make that kind of connection?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, back in the day, um, that is part of our culture. That is part of a tradition. That I mean, I don't want to, cast any negative. Well, speak negatively of the culture per se, and where spiritual happenings, exist. I'm not going to necessarily say that doesn't exist within itself, but unfortunately, I think what has happened later on, especially the times that we're living in now, it has become a business for the church, certain churches, and please don't shoot the messenger. We all know it. Um, it's big business now. And because people are in such desperate situations, people are struggling with mental health, serious mental health problems based on the stresses in their lives, real life health issues. unfortunately, there are people who are taking advantage of that. And that is very disheartening because it's inhuman to do that. And because sometimes people are going through, emotional and psychological pressure. People are depressed. There's a lot of depression out there. And rather than people getting the help they need, they're drawn to these places who then take advantage of it, and then come up with all these things that you just said. And it's a spiritual attack. It's somebody's mother's, father's, uncle that's having a go at you, all that stuff. Please stop it. Stop it. We're killing our people with that stuff, and like I said, there will be people who will, not be happy that I said that, but it's the truth and we know it.
Thank you for that. You see, we really must be courageous to say it. This is truth. We know that. Okay, I'm not going to take the argument further than that. No, it
Please.
is what we will refer to as a G's, in the sense that when people are growing up to a certain age, we have a stigma for them. We call them witches and wizard and all that. But we forget that you that is a younger person, you refer it to another person as a witch or wizard, that very soon you will also become old. People will also call you witches and wizard, you know, and then you are responsible for the problem of the society, whether you are supposed to be a treasure for the society because you have gone through a lot to be able to grow to that age. You were supposed to be there to give advice to people and all that. Okay, like I said, I don't want us to trade
And
that.
one other thing
Yes,
quickly.
please.
I mean, we used to be a people who respected and revered our elderly. It was more the people in the West that sort of threw away their older people. We were people who really, our older people were seen as elders, who had wisdom. Unfortunately, like you said, we see how in some for some people the older people are being cast aside. And something that people are not understanding is that with a lot of older people, there is dementia that we don't understand as dementia. And that's why, for some older people are cast aside and seen as crazy and mad, but they may be going through, dementia, which again is a mental health, condition that affects older people. They're not witches, they're just going through a natural human mental health problem that comes up for older people at times.
Thank you for that. All right, now let me take a step even backward now. How did you even get started with this project, with this Metahead, the sector? How did you get involved in it? How did you get started?
Yeah. When I think back, it really happened very organically, in the sense that from a very young age, I seem to have the capacity to attract people to tell me their problems, people from a young age. And when I did start thinking about my career, I I initially in university I did business management, and I really don't know why I did that because I have no business inclination whatsoever. But I like to spend, but I don't have business anyway. When I finished that, I found that I wasn't excited with my qualifications, and then I started writing for newspaper in Nigeria. I started with Vanguard, and then I was with the Guardian. I did, and then Punch, and I found that very quickly people were sending me messages, asking me different things and asking me to, give them advice about different things. And something started stirring. I think that's where it really started stirring within me, that real desire and passion to support people, emotionally. And then when I came to the UK, I trained in counseling. And when I finished as a counselor, my tutor or mentors will say, look, you have something, you have a gift with this thing. Why don't you pursue it even further? And I said, okay, I'm curious about it. I'm excited about it. And then I trained to be a psychotherapist, went 4 years in that training. And at the end of that, with that qualification, I then could practice as a mental health worker. So really, that's how I got into it. And then I did some work with women in prison, which was the period where Nigerian women were mules, considered mules. And then I was working with the women in prison, and through talking to them, beginning to understand that a lot of them were traumatized, a lot of them had mental health problems, a lot of them were depressed. So my interest was really heightened at this stage. I worked with an organization called AMWA, Kinamamawa Africa, and our work took us to Amsterdam, to Italy, see the Nigerian women who were there, and the women who had been trafficked to Amsterdam in the red light district. And all of these women, there was a theme. They were all women who had mental health problems. They had been abused, they had been, raped, there had been, a whole range of things that, people, even they themselves didn't understand as part of what might have been driving some of their own behavior. So at this stage, it then became my work. This was then something working with women, and particularly my interest was with women of color, and even more focused African women. So that's how it all sort of started.
That's interesting. And that is also a deep story of itself, no? The journey that African women go through here, the Nigerian women also in this case, no, in Europe. What do you think the people need to know? I mean, the people in the diaspora community about the argument we're having today, Metahead.
Well, just really being open to understand your own mental health, what mental health means to you, taking stock of how you feel on a daily basis, understanding that if you're struggling, if you're finding that there's a stage in your life where, or a period in your life where you feel under huge stress, and how that stress is manifest, if it changes your behavior on a daily basis, if you find yourself really struggling. And there's some basic things, like I said, if you find that your sleep is interrupted or disturbed, or you're waking up very early in the morning, not sleeping, continuously, waking up, constantly early, not being able to go back to sleep, problems with like I said, eating too much or not eating enough, just generally, struggling with daily life, take a minute, find out, number one, within your domestic setting, if it's your husband or your wife, talk to them about how you're feeling. And each person, the husband and the wife, be open to hear what they say. Really listen to what they're saying. We need to create an atmosphere where people feel safe to talk about it. Because if you're ashamed or you feel you're going to be judged, these are all things that shut people down, where they just say, okay, they have to just deal with it and do whatever. Sometimes it's even things like spending money that you don't have. Sometimes women think, they just like nice things. But if you find that, that has become a source of, using spending as a way to cope with difficult feelings that you're having, it's all part of the symptoms of what people do. Coping, what they call coping strategies. There's so many coping strategies. People use drinks, alcohol, drugs, overspending, all kind of abusive behavior. There's so many things that people use to cope. And sometimes coping strategies they're good, but for a period, because it helps deal with the struggles you're having. But when it becomes something that is counterproductive, or is something that is causing even more harm to you, like if you're spending money you don't have, or spending money that should be used for the well-being of the family, and you can't stop, that's a problem. And why are you doing that? It's like people who overeat sometimes. It's like you're trying to stuff the problem down, push it down, but it's going to come back up again, and it'll come up in ways that you're not aware, because and that's where domestic violence comes in for men and for women, because men are abused by women too. So there's so many symptoms, that give you a sign that something isn't right, and it's being able to either one, yourself understand that, okay, I'm doing my behavior is causing more harm to me and to people around me. What's going on? And people just being able to communicate with each other. We have to be able to listen to one another. Or if the family is noticing another family member behaving in a particular way, call a family meeting, make the person feel able to open up, not accuse them, just, okay, what's going on? We noticed this, we noticed that. How are you feeling? Just to create an atmosphere where people can talk, because it's all about the communication and being compassionate, being empathetic. It makes a big difference. And for some people, when I was doing one-to-one counseling and therapy, people who have been condemned, within a 6-week period of doing counseling or therapy, they're back to their normal selves again, which if they didn't have that intervention, it could have progressed into something worse. So we have to be able to talk about this thing. We have to be able to mention it without cringing, without being fearful, without being accusatory, without throwing all kinds of unhelpful stigma onto mental health. Mental health is what it is. It's just similar to physical health. If you think of it that way, if someone has cancer or any kind of illness, people don't, condemn them. The same way our mental health is under huge stress at the moment, so we have to be more kind to ourselves and be able to listen to each other.
We have to be kind to ourselves. That is very important. Now, are there some causes? I know that, okay, we're looking at the human being, and the human being is a very complex machine,
Yeah.
All right. Are there some causes that we can say, okay, these are responsible for mental health that have become very alarming today in the society? I mean, the African diaspora community, as it were.
One word for that: social media. It's one of the most, I think, it's a gift and a curse, because the fact that, like what we're doing today, we can talk to people in the other end of the world just like that. That's a gift. We've never had anything like that. But social media has now become, something else. And it's creating monsters, and people need to be mindful of how they're interacting on social media. I mean, right here in the UK, it has now, they're now saying for young people, the impact on young people who are taking their lives from being on social media, which to me is just mind-boggling, but that tells you how the level of the impact, it's having on people. So social media is not going away. The internet is here to stay, but people have to respect the dangers that come with it, and they need to check themselves. They need to check their children. And the really scary part of it is that the children are seeing what their parents are doing on social media. So sometimes when I see, especially Africans, I watch some of the interaction and postings of Nigerians in the diaspora, and I think, are you for real? you're talking about yourself and your family and other people. They're using social media, and that has now become a mirror of who we are, and where we are within our own mental health. Because I look at some of the things that I say, and I say, this person must have a mental health problem. You can't expose your life and yourself in this manner and not know that there's a problem with that, or the kind of things that you're talking about to the world. It should be something that you should keep within your own household, so that people have lost their inhibition. Anything goes. And so in that respect, that is a big issue, as one of the causes for real serious mental health problems. People trying to live lives that they can't live and pretend that they're living lives that they don't live, all of that. So that's a whole, and the generations of people and that are coming through from social media, that's going to be a whole different problem. But I think, the other thing is, relationships, how people interact with one another, either romantically or just as a family. The relationships people are having with one another. People have to be able to notice, like I said before, when somebody is acting out of character, and not see it as something to post on social media. This is funny. Everything is click. Everything, people have lost all sense of humanity. That this is not something that to laugh about. This is not something to. It's not entertainment. This person is struggling with something, and you are encouraging them to continue in that vein. So we've lost something, that, and I like to use the word humanity, a sense of humanity for one another, that we really need. And as Africans, that's one of the God-given things that we have, that humanity that we really must protect. That is something that is we've been blessed with as a people, and we seem to be losing that, and there are consequences for it, and our mental health is affected. So as far as causes, there's so many potential causes for mental health problems, and I think just raising awareness. The more we talk about it, the more it comes into our consciousness, and we become more conscious about it, and thereby being able to maybe explore it a bit more.
All right, explore it a bit more. In fact, that is what we are also doing here today. We are trying to explore this problem that we have in the community, which affect everyone. If you are a human being, you must understand that you are liable to suffer some of these consequences. Imagine, for example, the period that is ending now. Let's hope that is ending, which is about the COVID-19 pandemic, where a lot of people were locked down. I remember that I started an interview series where I talked to a whole session of African diaspora, try to understand, what are you feeling? How is it going on with you? Because it had never happened before that everything is locked down. You are at home. It's not a question of at home that's actually the problem. For the fact that you are living in a small space, and this space is where you are going to do everything. If you were one person, it is one thing. But now you are living there with your family. That is, it reveals the real human being at the end of the day. This period that we passed through, I think a lot of psychology are going to have to examine it for very many years. No, in that we say we are tired of working, but now the system have constrained you to stay at home in one place, no working. But many people also are complaining, and that is where the problem is. How do we manage this space, this time that we are living together? Do we have anything that we can learn from it? Are we really learning anything from this experience that we have just passed through? Or is it really the cause of this spiral of in the case of Metahead. Of course, we are talking of the African diaspora now in a general sense. But I have a lot of friends here in Italy. I've done a lot of interview here in Italy among Italians. This is something that is growing very high also outside the African diaspora. And I'm sure if you go to a UK and look at a particular demography, say maybe only the English people, I am sure that it is also growing high. So what I'm saying is it possible that this period that we spend at home because of the pandemic has increased the mental health issue? Help me with that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I mentioned that earlier that domestic violence has shot up. I mean, they during this period, they've had more calls on domestic violence problems than ever before. But, that for some people, it has been a blessing. For some, especially, a lot of the men have said that they've had a chance to get to know their children. They've had a chance to get to know their spouse, and that's been great, and it's made them feel, oh, whenever the pandemic is done, they want to structure their lives differently. They're being able to being forced to be at home and see what they've been missing in terms of the interaction with the family. For some people has been, incredible, has been, and they've decided, they want to change how they live. But unfortunately, the most percentage of people have developed very serious mental health problems. And, because for some people, going out has been an escape route, going out every day to work, and then finding that you can't do that anymore. They've really struggled with it, So it's a mixture. It's a mixture. It's some people, some couples have found it difficult to work together at home. Being in the same fight, the space to do work, both of them doing work in the house, being on top of each other has been difficult. But then when I think about it again, this is the Western living, because back in our hometown, in our home countries, people lived together. Big communities lived harmoniously together. So this is part of the maybe the negative side of Western living. That people are not used to being in the same space with one another. But we have to learn how to do that. And, but the sad part about it is it has created huge mental health problems. And the most significant has been the domestic violence. And also with even with children being abused on many levels, from having both parents at home and stressed. The parents are stressed and they take it out on the children. So it's a real problem. It's a real problem.
All right. Now we see this problem. The logical question now will be, what are the solutions? Are there some remedy to resolve this problem? Because I remember in one of your responses a few moments ago, you talked about the fact where you were making reference to the case that happened in Nigeria, the woman that gave birth after that. She had issue because people didn't understand it, then it led to a major problem. Then you said if it had been noticed on time, it could have been resolved, which means that there are solutions sometime, no? Please share with us, what are the remedies to some of these problems?
Well, I think it's, again, a certain level of awareness. One, self-awareness. The person themselves have to have a level of awareness, self-awareness themselves, understanding that what's going on with them at the moment, there's something not right. You might be able to have that self-awareness yourself, so you can say, okay, I'm feeling really sad at the moment. And sadness is part of, human emotions that, like anger and all of that, which are normal and healthy. But if it continues unabated and interferes with your daily living, or you find that you can't do, you're finding it difficult to get up in the morning, you finding it, like I said, the same things that I mentioned before, your eating is being interrupted, you're not sleeping well, if it happens after maybe a bereavement or you're grieving, again, those are normal responses and are healthy when you're going through a grieving period. The stages of grief is if you get stuck in one of those periods, like there's the anger, there's the denial, there's all of that. If you get stuck in one of those stages and it goes on for a prolonged period of time, then something else is going on there. So that's with loss, bereavement. But then as generally on a daily basis, we may go through a period where I say, I'm feeling we use the word depressed. I'm feeling depressed. It may just mean you're feeling sad. And after a day or two, you have a good laugh with a friend, you find some form of relaxation, then you bounce back. But when you don't bounce back, when you find that it's going on for a long period, then one, if you have enough self-awareness yourself, that's when you say you talk to your partner, or you talk to a friend, or you talk to, if you have access to healthcare professionals, if you're in the diaspora, hopefully you have easier access to mental health care. You have to be able to step up yourself, and seek help, just to be able to, sometimes, like I said, you can book in for consultation or book in for a counseling session, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Just talking about it, you'll be amazed how 1 or 2 sessions of talking about it just immediately brings the whole thing down. You've got it out of your system, or you identify something that you hadn't thought about before. And that has come from talking to a professional. They've helped you examine something that you might not have considered before, that you can then, work on. Self-care is also important. Like I said, I have a very heavy schedule from Monday to Friday. I only have 1 day off, and that day off is filled with all kinds of other things that I pack into it. But I also know when I've got to my limit, or when something is feeling, a little bit difficult emotionally or psychologically. I like I said, I love music. Music is one of my greatest sources of therapy. I turn on music and it soothes me. I have a very active relationship with my daughters. They are my tonic. I tell them all the time. Sometimes I'll call them. I'll say, "Mama is struggling." Or they say, "What's going on?" I say, "I'm feeling stressed. Can you come over this weekend?" In fact, it's Mother's Day on this Sunday. I'm so excited. They're coming over. So I know the things that my go-to things. I have 1 or 2 girlfriends that I call and I say, "Girl, I'm having a rough time." And she said, "Okay, let's go for a meal." We go and we laugh like babies. And then I get back. So I know myself, and I know I'm working around a lot of trauma, a lot of depression. My work is around emotional difficulties. So I take a lot of that in unconsciously by virtue of the work that I do. So sometimes my own issues or what's going on with me may meet up with a lot of the stuff. I may be triggered by some of the work I'm doing. But because I understand myself, I know the triggers. I know those moments where I'm saying, okay, I need to take a day off. I need to just shut it all down. And sometimes it means I have to say no to certain things that ordinarily I wouldn't want to say no to, but that's self-care, because I won't be able to do the work I'm doing. And I have a family, I have a life, I want to live long. So the things that we have to do to keep ourselves well, and you have to learn what you need. I love burning oils, all these, my senses, those type of things, keep me they keep my stress level low. So I know the things that I do that help me deal with my stress. Because we're living in a stress-filled world at the moment. You have to know what you need to do for you first and foremost, and then your family. Talk to your family. Your family need to also understand for each other. And that sometimes people are afraid to talk. That's the other thing I found. Couples are afraid to talk to each other about how they're feeling, and we have to be able to do that. Otherwise we will have problems. We'll have problems. And the children, also, children don't know how to talk about how they're feeling. They're afraid to. We have to pay more attention as a family unit to what's going on to members of the family, not the physical, the mental health, because that's ignored. People don't even deal with that. It's the physical thing. If you have a problem physically, or you have stomach ache, or this or that, but there are other parts that are being neglected, and it's to our peril. Because the world we're living in now is traumatized. We're living in a traumatized world. There's a new war that has started in Europe. We don't know how that's going to impact where that we're going with that. So there are wars everywhere. So the world is traumatized, put it like that, and we're all part of the world.
All right. The world is traumatized. All right. So sorry about that one, but that is the reality of the day, All right. Now, for the African community, because we still to be paying attention to that, and we really should do, because that is our demography. Is there a way that we can deal with this issue differently?
Well, I mean, there's so many creative ways, that the more traditional ways, some of the ways that I've talked about before. But I think one of the opportunities that I feel really sorry that is missed is with the media. A lot of African people in the diaspora watch African movies, Nollywood and all those things. And acting has always been a source of a place where you can teach the people how to behave. Like we still till today, a lot of the Nollywood films and drama, because Africans in diaspora watch a lot of those films. And unfortunately, mental health is still depicted in the same awful way. Health generally, illnesses, if you have an illness, it's because you've been cursed. If you have, mental illness, again, you've been, so we're not moving the narrative forward. We're not teaching, I would love, that's such an opportunity to show mental health in a positive light, to show it as something different than, all the negative stereotypes and myths that we have. I really, truly wish that we were able to use those, because people spend so much time watching those things, and it just, what's the word now? It just increases. I was thinking of a different word. It is exacerbates, or it makes the story or the issue of mental health. It keeps it in a particular, keeps it on the darkness around mental health. It keeps it there, and I just feel that that's a lost opportunity. So that's that. Again, it would be real. Like I said, what you're doing here is amazing, and the more we talk about it, the more it becomes something that we can talk about, something that is not taboo. Because mental health is still, I mean, even in the West, mental health is still, like I said, there's still some stigma attached to it, but like there's more discussion and conversation and awareness programs about it going on all the time. So people feel more comfortable to get help. But the more we talk about it, the more people will begin to see that it's something that we shouldn't be afraid of, and it's something that is part of our lives. And it's something that in order for us to live the best quality of life, we need to pay attention to it, and it's just conversations about it that I think will make a difference, as with everything, things that were taboo before, the more they talked about, the more it becomes part of daily conversation. And hopefully, people can then begin to, look for the help that they need for when they need it, and know that having mental health problems, again, I said it earlier, you don't have to be mad to have a mental health problem. And and for a lot of people, it's very temporary, and we go through, and once you have a sense of understanding and awareness about it yourself, you recognize when it pops up, okay, I'm going through a period of something, and it may be attached to, because people, for women also, their daily cycle. There are women who suffer very severe PMT, which is the menstrual cycle every month. And for some women, it can be so severe that it can cause very serious mental health problems for that period. They do very destructive things. Some men will tell you that for certain periods of time every month, their wives become lunatics and they don't understand what it is. And it's part of mental health issues, that's how they're affected during that period. So again, rather than see it as, okay, the woman she's just mad for 5 days in the month, talk to her. What are you feeling? What do you need? Because again, it might be something that over a period of years, if it's not addressed, can then develop into something else. It's all about early intervention, recognizing, because maybe for those 5 days in the month, she needs different type of relationship with the family. She needs to be, tended to in a different way that then allows her to overcome those feelings that she's having, which hopefully will then not develop into something more difficult. Because from that, then it can be when she does have some other stress in her life, in addition to what she goes through on a monthly basis, then, because mental health is funny and complex, sometimes one thing can latch on to something else. And if they're not dealt with, can then become something big, so that it's just having that word awareness keeps coming up. One, self-awareness, and general awareness in the community.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gloria. I really appreciate the time. All right, now we have come to everything I want to ask you. I've asked you, except maybe you have something else you want to share, because I think the conversation is very, very important, no? Exploring Metahead in the African diaspora community. And we have seen also the statistics, the data is something very important that we need to talk about. And of course, something like this, at least we need to do it from time to time. Let's talk about it, because by talking about it, then we come to understand how we are feeling. Because if I don't tell you what I'm feeling, you cannot know. It's not possible, no?
Also, in terms of that you can, there's all the different levels of support and help you can get. And even if you're not struggling necessarily with the mental health at the moment, book in some sessions, 1 or 2 sessions with a counselor, even a coach, just to see where you are with yourself. We spend money on a lot of unimportant things every day. Spend a little money on yourself, your mental health, your well-being. If you don't want to go to a counselor or therapist, because you think, oh, that means that something is, wrong with me. Book in a couple of sessions with a coach. I'm a coach. There's coaches everywhere. Coach helps you to just, look at things that are going on in your life at the moment, something you may want to change, something that will enhance your well-being. Sometimes we have to invest in ourselves, and from doing that, because part of what a coach does is help you to get the full potential, maximize your full potential. And you don't know what you don't know. So working with a professional can help you explore those things. And you can find some information that can give you a window into what may be potentially going on with you that can develop into something more serious. So invest in yourself, in your mental health, and don't wait until maybe you're feeling really bad before you do it. Sometimes, put a little, money aside, go and get 2 or 3 sessions just to see where you are, that maybe give you some insight into your own psychological well-being and state of mind. So that's what I would love to say to people, that don't, step out of your comfort zone. Take the decision that, okay, I'm just going to, get a couple of sessions, maybe even once a month, I'll get a session or 2 just to see, to keep me that level, that self-awareness, raise your own level of self-awareness and keep yourself healthy, keep your mental health healthy. Don't wait until you're unwell or you feel or you're struggling. That's a little bit of advice I'd like to.
So how can people connect with you?
I'm really, me and technology, all that stuff. I don't know what the URL and all that, but I have a website, www.turntogloria.com. And that's my website that will tell you all the work that I do and how you can reach me. So that's www.turntogloria.com, all one word. And you can find me on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. Just type my name, it'll come up.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It has been a pleasure on my part.
It's been a joy for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.